So we had two men on stage, and now I'm going to call two women. And this kind of introduction is not for nothing, because the speaker we're now going to have is, what's the exact title? Yeah, she's the CEO of aufeminin.com group, who's, if new or not French, the leading online media for women worldwide, with I think a little bit more than 45 million unique visitors a month. So it's very interesting conversation we're going to have on the future of media on one side, and also on perhaps some question about where do women fit in our world, so in the digital world, perhaps in the startup world as well. So I'm going to now call on stage Laure de Sauty, and Neïla Beyler from Les Echos.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Marie-Laure, it's a pleasure to have you. I see there is mostly men in this room. So Marie-Laure is the head of aufeminin.com, which is a publisher of a women's website, but it's a real success story. So I think you should listen up. So I would like, for those who don't know your company, it's a worldwide company now. Can you please just explain us in a few words how it grew? It's 15 years old now. But today, what's the DNA of aufeminin.com?
We try to do everything different. I like a quote from Benjamin Franklin, who said, "Believe none of what you hear," and we try really to be different. So, for example, day one, we launch Au Féminin in German, in French, in Italian, in Spanish, and in English, which is pretty rare because usually media are very local. We were not afraid as well to launch Au Féminin TV 3 years ago, because we believe at that time that our site will become fully video in the future. We didn't know when, but now it's now. So we're happy now that we are now the 4th brand video player in France, which is a big achievement for us. We also are not afraid of cannibalization, which is very often what publishers are afraid of. So even if we have no business model, we grow. We try to grow our audience, and then we try to monetize.
I'd like to come back on a few subjects you started to tackle. First of all, the internalization, the fact that Au Féminin is international, you are now in, I think, 2,000 countries, more or less, and you just launched today the Brazilian version. How do you manage being in so many countries and keeping the same identity everywhere?
Pretty easily. We are the only company that manages 7 languages in Paris. So the platform, which is absolutely essential, of course, is in Paris, and the content and the marketing and the community management are in, of course, local in every country. And we try to grow and to develop the local team as we grow our revenue. So now we are doing 53% of our revenue coming from international business.
And how do you see that revenue share grow? Is there more room for it to grow? Do you see it going grow fast? How do you think that will evolve?
We try to grow by double-digit numbers for the last 15 years. So we try to continue that. And of course, we will do that through many different devices. That's the reason why we are not anymore websites. We are really a multi-device platform, which is absolutely key for us. And then we test countries where we think that we have a potential. And sometimes, for example, everyone is thinking we should not go to the US, but we did. And it was very late because it was just in June. And we are pretty happy because we have 1 million uniques in a few months. And we are doing the same in Brazil. We don't know. We test and learn, and then we see.
A lot of European companies are afraid to start in the US because it's such a big market and there's already so many big players. How did you think of going there? What was your strategy going into that market?
I think it is precisely because it's a big market that we just think that we can take a small share of this market. It's much easier to launch in the US than to launch in Poland, for example, or in Vietnam when you need to grow and you're extremely small at the beginning. So no, we just feel the opposite way. We test and learn. We invest. We think that we should not invest too much, and we try really to grow our community by ourselves. And if we fail, we fail. We take the risk.
You also started to talk about the multiplication of devices. It was also the subject of LeWeb a couple of years ago. How is that implemented in your strategy? How do you manage the website, the mobile, the tablet? What is your strategy?
The strategy is really to restart every year. So every year we like this idea of starting something from zero. So when we started our YouTube channels, it's very exciting for us to have only one user at the beginning and then to grow and to learn again each time. So I think what we like is that when you're big, you have a lot of risk because you just feel that, okay, that's perfect, you have 45 million uniques. But at the same time, when you just start on mobile and we just have one, and then you grow to 25 million uniques, then you just feel that your company is really new. Again, it's a startup. It's everyone wants to invest, and everyone just reshuffle, retake all the risk, re-gamble. And I think it's the way our kind of business, even if we are 15 years old, is always in a startup mood.
Nick Deloiseau, who was on stage 2 days ago, who was the creator of Sumly, said that what he sees for the future is that there will be less and less written text content because of the multiplication of mobile devices. Is that what you see on your website? Do you think there will be less and less written content for video and audio?
Yes, what we experiment 3 to 4 years ago was to say, well, now we think that we are digital, but we are print digital. Text plus pictures. And we are absolutely certain, looking at the trend of the video, that it will change drastically. And we said in 5 years, but it's in 2 years. So now we invest, all the investment that we are doing are in video. On YouTube and on our website, because I'm also very interested in trying to grow your platform, but trying to grow as well your platform outside your platform.
How much are you investing, and what is the ratio towards the global investment that you're making?
Unfortunately, we are a listed company, so we don't disclose our investment, but we invest a lot. But what is interesting is that from day one, Aufeminin was very profitable, 30% of margin, which is pretty rare in media. So we are allowed to invest because we are making money.
And how will the advertising world will change? Would that also shift in media?
The shift is incredible. On every business, we lose 30% of our business every year because of the decrease of display and CPMs. So it's very challenging as well. We have to look at others' monetization. So we are always looking at a new business model. Of course, we have mobile. Of course, we have video. But the brand content is the major, because we produce premium content. So clearly, the brand content is our major source of new businesses.
Another big news right now for Aufeminin is that you bought recently, about a month ago, a company called My Little Paris, which is actually a newsletter that started in France. What are you going to do with it, basically? What are your plans?
We looked at many. Our last acquisition was NetMoms in the UK. So we looked at many different businesses in the US. Unfortunately, in the US, in my small business, which is media and women's content, we didn't find the perfect target. There are too many gamblers. Unfortunately, they are very often spoiled by private equity, and they don't like to make money, which is sometimes difficult because, well, you have too high valuation. My Little Paris is totally at the opposite of that. They didn't look for page views. They were looking only for great premium content and engagement. That was really very interesting and very exciting for us on the same target.
It's important to mention that they have one of the highest rate of opening emails.
Yes, 50%, which is amazing. And everything they do is really storytelling. So even if they launch boxes, it's a media story. You have a story inside the box. So we found that was highly exciting for us, and internationalization could be with us, something that could be as well very interesting for My Little Paris and Au Féminin.
So are you planning to also take them abroad to multiply the concept in many different countries?
It's a little too early because the integration will be in January, next January, but we are quite exciting, yes.
And you also bought 60% of the company. How much did you spend for that?
Also, this is something that we don't disclose. Being a listed company is something that doesn't help. But we will say that in a few months, because you can see that in our account.
Another important subject right now for Au Féminin is the protection of data and the protection of privacy. You mentioned to me earlier that Google has been closing that door and has been making you blind towards your subscriber. How did it start? What happened? And
it started in October 2011. When at the beginning it was a very small part of our keywords that were not accessible anymore. So the answer was not provided. And it grew to now being 90% of the requests that are not provided. Which means that in a time where everyone is talking about big data, that everyone is talking about engagement, how to measure, how to understand better, how to make sure that your content will be absolutely the content that your users want, Google makes us blind, which is incredible. And when you ask them, they say, it's for privacy issues, you see Prism. No, it doesn't, it's not true, because it started earlier. And when you want to buy AdWords, then you have a full access of 100% of what they call not provided. So it's interesting that at the time when we need more information, because we need absolutely to interact with our audience, we can't anymore. They make us blind.
And what can you do to, I wouldn't say retaliate, but what can you do to make up for that loss? Or how will you be, what dialogue will you have now on with Google? What can you offer them?
You know, very often a dialogue with Google is not easy because it's an algorithm and it's a big company. But we try to discuss, and I'm absolutely certain that being a few to say that, and to try to understand why what they use is not something that we can use because it's just the traffic on our platforms. Well, I think it makes sense to discuss that.
And what about the other search engines? Are you having the same problem?
In the past, of course, Google is very dominant in Europe, so we are more concerned by. But when you look at in the US or in Russia, the others just announced, Bing and Yahoo last month, that they will do the same. So it's a big issue for publishers.
One last question, because we're also talking about the future in media, and you're also a woman's website. You also had a kind of polemic by saying that women were also underrepresented in media, and especially on social networks. Have your position changed over the last years?
No, unfortunately. It's largely linked to the fact that, unfortunately, engineers are very often men. In our countries, it doesn't grow. So we have to do a lot, and we have to explain to young girls that they need to learn how to code. So we have a lot to do. So we try to do our best on that. We organize what we call les rencontres with women. We went to Toulouse to explain that women and science are very exciting. So we try to do our best to change that. But there is not only the question that there is unfortunately few women, but there is also the question of underrepresentation, which is something which is unbelievable, even and very challenging, even for the web. When you see the first day without any woman on stage, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. So it's what is happening right now in media. And what about entrepreneurship, digital industry? Do you see that happening as well?
Well, you have fantastic women in entrepreneurship. At Litchi, at My Little Paris, you have so many. So I think, no, it's just a question of really making a focus and looking at them. You have plenty of women, great women.
Thanks a lot, Marie-Laure.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.